In 2005, the U.S. Navy sank its own aircraft carrier. The USS America, CV-66, had served for 32 years. Instead of scrapping her, the Navy decided to use her for something unprecedented. They wanted to know exactly what it takes to sink a carrier. So they spent 4 weeks trying. They hit her with explosives above the waterline, below the waterline. They detonated charges designed to simulate torpedo strikes, cruise missile impacts, and mine damage. They used every method available to a modern adversary. It took 25 days to sink her. 25 days of sustained, deliberate destruction against an unmanned, undefended, stationary carrier with no damage control teams fighting back, no pumps running, no crew sealing compartments, no defensive systems firing, nothing. The Navy classified the detailed results. What we know is that the ship absorbed an extraordinary amount of punishment before she went down. And that was a carrier built in the 1960s. A modern Nimitz-class carrier is stronger. A Gerald R. Ford-class carrier is stronger still. The reason a carrier is nearly impossible to sink isn't just about the ship itself. It's about the fact that you have to fight through 5 concentric rings of defense before you even touch it. And each ring is designed to kill you. Before anything can threaten a carrier, the carrier has to be found. This sounds obvious. It isn't. The ocean is 139 million square miles. A carrier strike group occupies a fraction of that space, and it's moving at 30+ knots. Finding it requires satellite coverage, long-range reconnaissance aircraft, or submarine patrols. Each of those can be detected, disrupted, or destroyed. But the carrier's first ring of defense isn't about preventing detection. It's about detecting the threat first. The E-2 Advanced Hawkeye is the fleet's airborne early warning aircraft. It launches from the carrier's deck and climbs to 25,000 feet, where its AN/APY-9 radar can track air and surface contacts out to approximately 350 nautical miles. That's over 400 miles in every direction. This means the strike group has a radar picture of everything moving within a 550,000 square mile area around it. Aircraft, missiles, ships, even certain types of low observable drones. The E-2 sees them. But the Hawkeye isn't alone. The strike group also receives data from national intelligence assets, satellites, signals intelligence, undersea surveillance networks. P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft operating from land bases can sweep hundreds of thousands of square miles for submarine contacts. The result is that the carrier strike group typically knows about a threat long before the threat knows about the strike group. And in naval warfare, seeing first means shooting first. The outer defensive ring is the air wing. A Nimitz-class carrier embarks approximately 44 F/A, 18 E/F Super Hornets, and increasingly F-35C Lightning IIs. In a defensive posture, the air wing maintains a combat air patrol, a CAP, at extended range from the strike group. An F/A-18E carrying AIM-120 DAM/RAAM missiles has an effective engagement range of over 100 miles. An F-35C carrying the same missile adds stealth. It can position itself closer to the threat axis without being detected, and its sensor fusion allows it to engage targets that other platforms can't yet see. The CAP typically orbits at 200 to 300 miles from the carrier. Against an incoming strike package, say a formation of bombers carrying anti-ship missiles, the fighters engage at maximum range. Before the enemy aircraft can launch their missiles, they have to survive the fighter screen. Consider the math. A strike of 20 enemy aircraft approaching from one bearing encounters 8 to 12 fighters with 6 missiles each. That's 48 to 72 shots against 20 targets before a single anti-ship missile is launched. Even at conservative kill probabilities, the majority of the strike is destroyed before it becomes a missile threat. And this is just the second ring. A carrier never travels alone. The strike group typically includes 1 or 2 Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruisers and 4 to 6 Arleigh-Burke-class guided missile destroyers. Each of these ships carries the Aegis combat system. Aegis is arguably the most capable integrated air and missile defense system in the world. The SPY-1D radar, a phased array system that electronically steers its beam rather than physically rotating, can track hundreds of contacts simultaneously. It calculates intercept solutions in real time and assigns weapons automatically. Each Ticonderoga-class cruiser carries 122 vertical launch cells. Each Arleigh-Burke carries 96. Loaded with SM-2, SM-6, and ESSM missiles, a full strike group carries somewhere between 600 and 800 missile interceptors. The SM-6 can engage targets at ranges exceeding 200 nautical miles. It can intercept aircraft, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles in their terminal phase, and even surface ships. The ESSM handles closer threats with extreme agility, and these ships don't operate independently. Through Cooperative Engagement Capability, CEC, every sensor in the strike group shares data in real time. A Hawkeye can detect a target and pass the track directly to a destroyer's SM-6. The missile doesn't need the launching ship's radar to guide it. It uses the best sensor available from any platform in the network. This means the defensive envelope isn't defined by any single ship's radar range. It's defined by the combined sensor coverage of the entire group. And that envelope extends outward for hundreds of miles. Any missile that survives the fighter screen enters this zone, and this zone is saturated with interceptors if a missile survives the fighters. If it evades or overwhelms the SM-6 and ESSM salvos from the escorts, if it penetrates hundreds of miles of layered Aegis coverage, then it enters the close-in defense zone. This is where we pick up from the last video. Each escort and the carrier itself carries close-in weapon systems. The Phalanx CIWS, the 20mm Gatling gun that tracks and fires autonomously. The C-RAM, a RAM missile launcher mounted on the Phalanx tracking system. And now, increasingly, directed energy weapons, Helios, Odin, the systems we discussed in detail. The close-in zone extends from about 9 miles down to point-blank range. RAM handles the outer edge. Phalanx and lasers handle the inner edge. These systems are designed for one specific scenario, a missile that has already beaten everything else. The engagement timeline at this point is measured in seconds. There is no human decision-making. The systems are autonomous. Detect, track, engage. If one misses, the next system picks up the target. Against a single leaker, a single missile that penetrated all outer rings, the close-in systems have a high probability of kill. Against multiple leakers arriving simultaneously, the math gets harder. This is why the Navy invested in lasers. Phalanx and RAM have limited magazines. A laser doesn't. But even if something gets past the close-in systems, there is one more ring. A Nimitz-class aircraft carrier displaces over 100,000 tons. It is 1,092 feet long. It has 4.5 acres of flight deck and over 2,000 compartments below decks, divided by armored bulkheads. The hull incorporates multiple layers of protection. Kevlar armor over vital spaces, compartmentalization that divides the ship into 23 watertight zones. Each zone can be independently sealed. The ship is designed to absorb catastrophic damage in multiple zones simultaneously and continue operating. The two nuclear reactors are buried deep within the ship, surrounded by armored compartments. The magazines, where the air wing's weapons are stored, are similarly protected. The critical systems are redundant: multiple fire mains, multiple electrical buses, multiple steering systems. But the most important defensive layer isn't steel or Kevlar. It's the crew. 5,000 people serve aboard a Nimitz-class carrier. Of those, a significant number are trained in damage control. The Navy's damage control training is arguably the most intensive of any military. Every sailor, regardless of their primary job, learns to fight fires, seal flooding, shore up damaged bulkheads, and treat casualties. When USS Forrestal caught fire in 1967, a catastrophic blaze that killed 134 sailors and cooked off bombs on the flight deck, the crew saved the ship. When USS Enterprise suffered an explosion and fire in 1969, the crew saved the ship. These incidents were devastating, but the carriers survived because thousands of trained people fought to keep them alive. A modern carrier's damage control capability includes automated fire suppression, advanced flooding sensors, and pre-planned response procedures for virtually every type of damage. A single missile hit, even a direct hit, is not expected to sink a carrier, or even to stop flight operations for long. Now step back and consider what an adversary actually faces. To sink a carrier, you must first find it in 139 million square miles of ocean. Then you must get your strike platform, aircraft, submarine, ship, or shore battery, within launch range while avoiding detection by the E-2D, National Intelligence Assets, and the submarine screen. If you launch missiles, those missiles must survive the fighter cap at 200+ miles. Then, they must survive the Aegis SM-6 envelope at 100+ miles. Then the ESSM envelope at 30 miles. Then RAM at 9 miles. Then phalanx and lasers inside 2 miles. Then they must hit a ship that can absorb the impact and keep fighting. Assign even modest probabilities to each layer. If each ring kills 70% of incoming threats, and most analysts estimate higher, then out of 100 missiles launched, roughly 70 are killed by fighters. Of the 30 remaining, Aegis kills 21. Of the 9 remaining, ESSM kills 6. Of the 3 remaining, close-in systems kill 2. One missile reaches the carrier, and that one missile hits a ship designed to absorb it. 70% per layer is conservative. At 80% per layer, the numbers are even more stark. 100 missiles become 20, become 4, become 1, become 0. This is why naval strategists talk about saturation attacks. To overwhelm a carrier strike group, you don't need a better missile. You need more missiles than the defense has capacity to kill. Depending on the scenario, that number ranges from several hundred to over 1,000 missiles, arriving simultaneously from multiple vectors. Very few nations on Earth have the capability to launch that kind of coordinated strike, and those that do know that such an attack would constitute an act of war against the United States, with everything that implies. This isn't about one weapon, it's about the system. Each layer covers the failure rate of the layer before it. Redundancy upon redundancy upon redundancy. And at the center of it all, a ship built to survive what gets through. The USS America took 25 days to sink with no defenses, no crew, and no escorts. A defended carrier with its full strike group, its air wing flying, its Aegis ships scanning, its close-in weapons armed, and its 5,000 crew members at battle stations. That is a different problem entirely. It may not be literally impossible to sink, but it is as close to impossible as naval engineering has ever achieved.